what's up everybody, it's Flux of Fluxwithit.com, and today we're going to check out the Qubit Scanned VCO. This is a module that's a little bit weird, and because of that I'm just going to show some sound examples like this. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk about how it works without fully, like, you know, trying to get into too much technical detail. So let's just jump right into this. That's a pretty cliche term, sorry about that. So this module, Scanned, the name comes from the fact that it's scanned synthesis or scanned wavetable synthesis. And essentially, from what I gather, this is supposedly the first time that this has been used in hardware. You're essentially creating wavetables on the fly from what I'm getting on this thing. Now, we've got mass, center, stiffness. These are three knobs that you probably don't always see on a VCO. So what the hell do they do? Well, mass, center, stiffness, and strength, really, and dampening, they all kind of like tie together into a string. So when you hit the string, when you excite it, excite button, look, exciting, look. Are you excited? I'm excited. So they all kind of interact together, and the mass is essentially, if we have it dropped all the way down, picture an object that's as heavy as possible and it's hitting the ground and then not really bouncing much, right? If we bring it up a bit, it's going to be almost floating. And if we go all the way up, we're going to get a drone. Okay? Now the center is kind of like how quickly everything vibrates to the center. And if you increase it, you're going to get a lot more higher harmonics. And if you drop it down, you get this kind of slow evolution. So check out the slow evolution. And check out that fast evolution with the high harmonics. So if I go in the middle, I bring it up. Now the stiffness, this is where it gets really interesting, because the stiffness really ties all this together. The stiffness is essentially how the mass and the center and the dampening all kind of tie together, and how much they really affect each other. So if I drop the stiffness down here, you hear how it's kind of loose, and if I bring it up, it's a much tighter kind of resonance going on. Now let's say I give it a nice longer decay here with, we'll take this about to the center here, and watch how the stiffness affects this. So you can see that the stiffness is really affecting how the mass and the center are really kind of interacting. And then of course dampening is basically exactly what you would think. We're dampening that string. All right, so if I bring this all the way up, and if I drop it down, we get that tighter dampening. That's all well and good, and you're thinking, that's cool, that's pretty basic, I can figure that stuff out, right? Wrong. There's so much more to this. So if we turn up the update rate, what's going to happen? Well, the update rate is essentially how quickly this synthesis engine is reinterpolating, you know, what's going on with the excitation of the waveform. That was just fun to say. So we get this really quick pluck. Now if I drop it back, check this out. And you're thinking, okay, well, how is that so different from the mass? Well, let me show you. Let's bring the mass up, and then bring the update rate up. And now your brain is freaking out. Strength is the strength of the excitation of the hammer. So basically it's how, so all this stuff is interacting together, right? But it's all essentially trying to morph and change into the shape of the hammer. So this is kind of the strength of that. Now if I take this down to a sine wave hammer, all right, we'll bring the update rate about middle. Now if I bring it to the saw wave, and it is a smooth sweep in between. This little random chips type sound. And it's a beautiful green. So watch what happens when we bring up the strength. And you'll also notice how, again, it affects everything else. And of course we have our frequency. Let's drop the frequency and check this out. And what's cool about this thing is that really you can go from these kind of hi-fi, futuristic percussive sounds and really weird wavy drones and spaced out type of sounds to kind of these lo-fi crunchier sounds and everything in between. Now that interacts really steeply with the update rate. So the frequency and the update rate, when you kind of play with the two together, you get a really wide range of sounds. I hope you have headphones on because then you can check the bass, and also as the volume levels of this video kind of spike and go out of control, because I don't ever compress the audio in these videos, I can hopefully damage your eardrums a little bit, and then you can thank me for that later. All right, let's get into a few more interesting patch sounds. One module that I found pairs really, really well with this is a spring reverb. So, and that seems kind of fitting, right? So you're vibrating springs, like nonsensical, non-realistic springs inside of this, and then we're sending it through an actual real spring. So that's cool. Let's bring this up. All right, now let's hear how it sounds with some actual melodic patches going on, and then I'll get into modulations on this, because really when you start modulating things like the update rate and the center, you get some really interesting sounds out of it. Okay, so here I'm just using the Fluxus 1 to generate a random pentatonic minor sequence, and let's just listen to how it interacts. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and start modulating things in interesting ways. One of the ways you can do that in a just very, very simple, basic modulation would be obviously to send a, a LFO into, let's say, the rate. Let's take a listen. Now let's send a random into the hammer so that we can kind of change up what that percussive element is striking it like. And another stepped voltage into, let's say, the dampening. So we can see that these modulations deeply affect how everything kind of evolves and changes. Let's actually switch that up a little bit. We'll take the dampening one and we'll send that to center. Let's take that shape one. Actually, I'm going to keep the shape there, and I'm going to add one more modulation here. Let's add a modulation for the stiffness here. And the stiffness one we'll send to a slightly different stepped voltage. And we'll add, let's see if we can add some drums to it and see if it all works. Give it some swing. So you can see the modulations are really kind of altering what's going on with this thing, and you can get a lot of different shapes and sounds out of it. I found that this is one of those happy accident modules. It took me a while to really wrap my head around exactly adjusting what does what, because of the interaction of the different knobs. If I wanted to kind of compare this module and pair it up with other things, it pairs really nicely with Immutable Instruments elements. It's kind of similar in that percussive way. And the way that you can kind of form and shape things in this weird, unique space. So I really like it like that. I love sending it to delays and to reverbs just to kind of add more of that artificial space for it. I'm really impressed with it overall because it sounds unique. It doesn't sound like everything else. A lot of times when I hear people using elements or clouds or, you know, the no coast, for example, I can pick it out in a mix instantly. The Scanned VCO just sounds different every time I hear it, and I'm just always kind of surprised by it. So very cool module. I highly recommend you check it out. Spend some time with it. Get your hands on it if you can, and just play with it. Have fun. Anyway, this is Flux of Fluxwithit.com. I hope you enjoyed checking it out. I know I did, and I'm going to make beats with it. Peace.